Hey everybody, this week we have Tim Lodgen on the show. I met Tim on Instagram a couple weeks ago, and we had the honor of having him on the show the night before his 1 year sobriety anniversary. So this is kind of a special episode as Tim's been living in the trenches for the past year. He's fresh out of the shit, and it was a really good conversation. It was a fun time having him on. We got a little sidetracked early, but hang in there. It's a pretty good show. It's a little long, but I think that there wasn't really any that I felt should be cut out. So hope you enjoy. Hope you have a good time listening to it. Tim's a great guy. You can follow him on Instagram. And hope you enjoy the show. Let's get to it.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Rex.
And I'm Reina.
And tonight, our guest is Tim Lodgen. We met through Instagram. Seems like almost everybody that's in my circle now I've met on Instagram. Tim is celebrating a year tomorrow. That's awesome. Congratulations. It's a fucking miracle.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir, yeah. Man. That first year is the hardest. Well, welcome to the show, Tim.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate that we could connect, and I look forward to sharing with you, man.
Absolutely, man. I look forward to hearing your story. So, yeah, so the way we kind of do it here is tell your story as much or a little as you want to, and then I got a question for you when you're done, and we'll just kind of go conversation from there.
That's good to me, man.
All right,
good.
Why don't you tell people a little about yourself?
Okay, so I'm 45 now. I grew up in a pretty normal family. My father was a police officer. He was a police officer for 36 years. My mother, my father left my mother when I was about 6 years old. I was in first grade, so 6 or 7. I don't really remember. It was one of those years. And I have a brother who's 10 years older than me, so he was in high school already. And so I grew up pretty much just with my mom and my brother. The year my father left us, my mom actually became a professional bodybuilder. So I grew up with her. She never drank. She never did drugs. As far as I know, obviously my dad never did drugs, and he only drank like a normal person every once in a while. Never had any issues mentally, neither did my mother. But my father leaving me took a big toll on me as a small child. I would remember him coming to pick me up on weekends, and I'd get that phone call an hour before he would show up. Hey, I can't make it. I got to work overtime. I'll get you next weekend. And that happened a lot. I remember having my bags packed, waiting at the front door, waiting for my father to come to get me, and he just wouldn't show up. And it would go on for months like that. I wouldn't see my dad for 6, 7, 8 weeks sometimes. And it was always, I gotta work.
Yeah.
So I kind of got used to him not being around, and it really affected me because, I took it personally, like maybe I was the reason my dad left. Why didn't he stick around for me, but he stuck around for my older brother? Was I the cause of the divorce? Like, it really weighed heavy on me as a small child. But I pretty much grew up normal. I played baseball. I played football. I was almost a professional skateboarder at one point. I was a junior Olympic boxer. I was always an athletic person. And I think maybe that was an outlet for me to find myself. I always wanted to excel at something. I always wanted to be acknowledged in my talents and what I did, because I wasn't getting it from my father. I always looked for that affirmation from my father, but I never got it. My mother, on the other hand, that woman worked 2 jobs. She did everything she could to put food on the table, give us a nice house, always supported anything that I wanted to do as far as athletics or art. I'm a really good artist, so she always supported that, had me go to some schools for art. Like, she really took the place of my father. To this day, she's one of the strongest women I've ever met in my entire life. And it just, I look up to her as a father and a mother. She really went above and beyond for me. So the love that I didn't get from my father, my mother definitely tried to make up for, hands down.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I got into high school, I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. In ninth grade, we had a freshman welcoming party, and that was the first time I tried alcohol. And it was malt liquor, and I got shit-faced. And the next morning, I was sick as a dog. And I was like, no more. I don't want nothing to do with alcohol. I'm not going to drink again. And I didn't touch drinking or drugs until my senior year of high school.
Wow.
My senior year of high school was when I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it again. And I liked it at that point. I started drinking on the weekends, started using pot, LSD, PCP, shrooms, pain medicine. I never went hard like heroin or cocaine, but I always liked the psychedelics. I loved classic rock. I was into Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, like the Grateful Dead. Like I was totally that. I was into that. And as soon as I started doing that, I stopped skateboarding. I stopped boxing. I stopped all my extracurricular activities. I started hanging out with all the guys that smoked pot and partied. I started cutting class. I started missing school, and we would leave and go get high and go ride through the park and sit by the water and listen to music. Like all my priorities completely changed. I just wanted to have fun. My senior year of high school, I realized, man, you know, my grades aren't that good. I'm not getting into college. And the guys I were hanging out with started to get into heavier drugs, heroin and cocaine. And I was like, I'm not into that. I don't want to do that. So I decided to join the Marine Corps. So the day I graduated, I was supposed to leave for boot camp. I actually fell down the steps and broke my ankle. So I was able to stay home that whole summer after I graduated high school. So I got a lot more partying in before I went and wait to the Marine Corps. I'd say I got it all out of my system. But when I got into the Marines, obviously the drugs stopped. But my alcohol consumption, man, probably tripled. Easy. Because that's what we did. We would train. And then when we got off at 4 or 5 p.m., we went straight to the bars, straight to the strip clubs. And we partied until we either got into a fight, passed out, or got in trouble by the law and had to be brought back on base. I mean, there was times we wouldn't get in until 2 o'clock in the morning and have to be up at 3:30 to go running. Like it was kind of like a badge of honor to see, you know, who could get shit-faced the most and still run 3 miles in an hour and a half and not throw up. And to be honest, man, we would see our sergeants out at the bars. We would see them at the strip clubs, you know, and they would just be like, just make sure you're up at 3:30 in formation. We don't care what you do. It was kind of like expected of the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. And when you're in the service and you go to the bar, their motto was, if you can take a bullet for this country, you can have a cold beer. So there was no type of trying to shoo us away from it. They were welcoming it to us because we were in the military. So alcohol was readily available all over them.
Trying to treat you as grown men.
Absolutely. And that's what they did. If you can die for us, you can have a cold beer. And we drank. When I got out of the Marines at 21, you know, I came home and my mom allowed me to move back into her house. And for the first month, I was kind of like, oh, you know, this is cool. I don't have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, I could kind of relax and just kind of do my thing. And about the 3rd month of being home, I finally realized that, you know, I wasn't in the military anymore. What was my direction in life? I got to get a job now. I got to start looking for a place to move out because, you know, I'm 21. I shouldn't be living at my mom's house. All this stuff started hitting me. And, you know, kind of backtrack a little bit. When I was 14, I was diagnosed with bipolar. So all through high school, I was on medicine for bipolar. When I got into the Marines, I couldn't tell them I had bipolar or else I wouldn't have been accepted into the Marines. So the whole time I was in the Marines, I was not on any medicine whatsoever. And my bipolar kind of helped me in the Marines because there was no down. It was always go, go, go. So I was manic for 3 years, like just straight up, like 100 miles an hour every single day. So that time when I came home and I started to decompress and realize I wasn't in the military, I didn't just come down to normal. I went down into a valley of depression. Everything hit me at once and I couldn't handle it. I just really didn't know what to do at that point. It got me so low that I found myself with my stepfather's Glock in my waist, and I was contemplating taking my own life. And luckily at that point I had a girlfriend, and I called her and told her how depressed I was and what I was doing. And she came over and we talked, and she helped me set it aside. And luckily I didn't do that at the age of 21. A year later, I met my wife. I actually knew her since middle school and high school. We went to the same schools. Never boyfriend or girlfriend, but we actually partied together in high school. Her boyfriend was actually my connection for all my extracurricular activities, if you know what I mean. But we never were together. But when I came home a year later, I met her, and we've actually been together ever since 1996. And a year after we got together, we bought a townhouse. I had a nice job. A year after we got together and bought a house, we had our first child. My drinking was at that point Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I've really tried to keep it under control, but when I did drink Thursday and Friday and Saturday, it wasn't just a 6-pack. It was a 12-pack. It was an 18-pack. It was until I passed out or threw up. It was never just have a couple beers to relax. It was, I had an agenda. When I drank, I wanted to get drunk. It wasn't just have a couple beers to relax because I had a bad day. I had a purpose on drinking. I wanted the end result to me be passing out or throwing up. And I thought that was normal, to be honest with you, because that's all I did when I drank. I drank to get completely shit-faced. And I was like, that's just how you drink. You know, what's the point of drinking if you're going to have 2 or 3 drinks? What's the point of that shit? So yeah. I drank until I got sick. And I did that all through my 20s up until my 30s. And I never saw it as a problem. By the time we got into my 30s, we had our second daughter and then our third daughter. At this point, I had gone through about 35 jobs from the time I was 21 to about 36. And it didn't really dawn on me that the reason I was going through all these jobs was because of my alcoholism, my drug use, and my bipolar, and not being on the proper medicines that I need. Regardless, even if I was on the proper medicines, doing drugs and alcohol, you throw the medicines right out the window because they don't work. I didn't realize that. I was like, well, I'm taking my medicine. Why isn't this shit working? Oh, they just give you something else, up the dosage, you know, they try to figure out. But I never told them, oh, by the way, I was doing drugs and drinking. If I would have told them that, they would have surely told me that the medicine didn't work. But I never said that. I just thought it was a part of life, you know. The last 4 years of my drinking, from the age of 41 to this past year, it finally gotten out of control. I couldn't manage my alcoholism anymore. I was spiraling out of control further than I could grasp what was happening. I'd gone through some more jobs. I think my total now is I'm 45. I've had 46 jobs since the age of 21. So wow. I've had enough jobs that since I was 1, if I started working. So I came to a point at the age of 41 where I was depressed enough to where I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to ask for help. I think I was ashamed. I think I was embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know. I thought it was a secret. Nobody knew I was drinking and drugging, you know, but as we all know, we're the last ones to know that because everybody sure as shit knows what you're doing. Come to this day, March 16th, 2017. And I remember this day for the rest of my life. We have a nice reservoir down here in Maryland that everybody goes hiking and picnics and walks their dogs and goes running. And I jump in my truck and I'm driving through the reservoir and I'm crying and I'm beating my steering wheel and I'm yelling up to the sky. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I'm a piece of shit father, piece of shit son, piece of shit husband. What is my purpose? Why am I here? Please give me a sign that I have a reason to be alive, because as of right now, I don't know what it is and I don't want to live anymore. And I'm driving through the reservoir and I come to this tree where when I was 19 years old, my best friend lost control of his car and hit the tree and passed away. And at the tree, there's a book that you can write to him. They put flowers there still to this day. And there's a picture of him still on the tree, kind of like a little vigil. You can go and speak to him. And I get to the tree and I pull over and I get out of my truck and I'm like, Bill, I'm like, man, you know, I don't know what to do with my life anymore. I need a sign that I'm not alone, that something else out there is watching over me and there's a reason that I'm here. Please, I can't do this anymore. I want the pain to go away. I want this to stop and I don't know what to do. And I sat at the tree for about 5-10 minutes and I get back in my truck and I go to leave the reservoir. And at this point, I'm like hysterically crying. I can barely see, I can't drive. So I pull over, but I don't pull over on the side where I'm supposed to be driving. I pull off to the other side on oncoming traffic and I sit there. And about 10 minutes goes by and this car pulls up in front of me and we're nose to nose. And I see the man get out of his car and he gets his dog and he's about to walk across to where the water is. And I'm watching this man get out and I'm looking at him. All of a sudden it dawns on me. It's my best friend who passed away. It was his father, whom I hadn't seen since 1996, the day of the funeral. And I get out of my truck and I look at him. I said, Mr. Bill? And he says, Timmy, what's wrong? And I fall to the curb and I'm crying. I'm like, I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. I don't know what to do. I just want the pain to stop. And he comes over to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, Timmy, I'm not even supposed to be here this morning. My wife came to me in a dream last night and told me to come here at 10 a.m. this morning and walk the dog. He said, I'm supposed to be in Myrtle Beach. He said, I was supposed to leave last night. He said, but I put it off to come here this morning and walk my dog. Wow. And I said, Mr. Bill, I just stopped at Billy's tree and asked him to send me a sign. And we just hugged. You know, he told me everything is going to be okay. And we talked for about 15, 20 minutes. And I leave the reservoir and I feel like a weight's lifted off my shoulder. But that wasn't enough to stop me from drinking. I didn't take it. It gave me some energy for like a day or two. Like, wow, that really happened. Like, okay, I'm good. Somebody's watching over me. But it wasn't like this was your awakening. I didn't take it like that. And the next 4 years of my life was the most drinking I've ever done since the age of 18. Beer wasn't enough. I switched to Fireball whiskey. All I drank was whiskey from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. And my alcoholic addiction brain told me, don't buy the big bottles of whiskey because then you'll really know how much you're drinking. So I'd buy the miniatures. I'd buy a sleeve at a time, which is 10 of them in a sleeve. And I'd get a sleeve and I'd be done that by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I'd go and get a second sleeve. The last year of my drinking, I was drinking 25, sometimes 30 miniatures a day of Fireball whiskey. The beer didn't do it. I was looking for that instant, that warm feeling that we all like as addicts that come over your body and that tingling sensation, and the whiskey was doing it for me. This time last year, March 4th, I had wrecked my truck twice in 2 days, brand new truck. I hit something on the side of the road. I don't know what it was. Still don't know what it was to this day. I don't know if it was a sign or another car. I wake up. I told my wife I'm going to get milk and water. And she says, how are you going to do that? And I said, with my new truck. She goes, go look at your truck out in the driveway. So I go out to my driveway and I look. My right tire's hanging off the rim. My side mirror's hanging off. And she looks at me and she says, you don't have no idea what you hit, do you? And I said, I don't. She said, Tim, you could have killed somebody or yourself last night. She said, this is out of control. You can't stay here anymore. You have to go figure this out. So I pack up some stuff. I call AAA. They come and put my spare tire on my car, and I leave. And I go to a park and ride. After I stopped at the liquor store and got more whiskey.
Of course. Yeah.
And I go to the park and ride, and I put on the saddest music I can listen to, and I guzzled the liquor, man, for 48 hours. Just drank, sat in my sorrows, depressed, just thinking about everybody that I hurt, all the disappointment that I've caused in my life. And, I sat there not wanting to live anymore. My wife had finally kicked me out after everything I put her through. She finally had enough. That, to me, my life had ended. She was my everything, my kids. I can't go back to my house, everything that I've loved. And I turn off my phone for 48 hours. And I just sit there and just get wasted. I turn my phone on March 5th, Friday morning at 7 after 10 in the morning. 2 minutes later, at 9 after 10, I get a phone call. And it's my childhood friend, Brandon Novak. If you don't know who he is, he's from Jackass. He was in Viva La Bam, Bam's Unholy Union. I grew up with him. We partied together. We skateboarded together. And he calls me. He's like, Lodgen, what the fuck are you doing? I said, I'm in my truck. I'm cold. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm drunk. He says, good, motherfucker. That's what you need. Just got off the phone with your wife and your mother. We have a plane ticket set for you this evening at 8:30. You're going to go down to Banyan Treatment Centers in West Palm Beach, Florida, and you're going to go get help. And I was like, okay, man. I wasn't really convinced. He's like, trust me. You'll get back everything that you lost 10 times fold. Just get on that goddamn plane. Call me when you pass security, because I want to know you're getting on the plane. You're not going to catch a cab and duck out of there once you get dropped off. I'm like, okay, man, okay. So I hang up the phone. 20 minutes goes by and my wife calls. She's like, hey, I just got off the phone with Brandon. I want you to come home, take a shower, pack your bags, try to eat something, try to, rest for a little bit. You got like 4.5 hours till the plane leaves. I said, okay. So I go home, take a shower. I couldn't eat. My stomach was so jacked up from drinking for 2 days. At this point, I'm nervous about going to rehab. I'm having anxiety. I don't know if I'm going to go. All this stuff's running through my head. I'm sitting on the side of the bed and I'm crying. And I go downstairs to the basement. I throw a rope around my neck and I stand on the bucket. And I guess about 3-4 minutes go by, and my wife notices I'm not in my bedroom. And she comes down the steps and she sees me standing in the corner of the basement on a bucket with a rope around my neck. And she says, what are you doing? I said, I can't do this. I said, I just want the pain to go away. I was like, I can't do this. She says, please get down. Do you know what this will do to your children? Please get down, Tim. Everything is going to be okay. Just get down. So I get down, fall to the floor, and I'm crying for like 10 minutes. And then I go upstairs and I call my friend. I'm like, Brandon, I'm ready. I was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to kill myself. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And all he says is, I'm proud of you. I love you. Call me when you get past security. I said, okay. So my mom takes me to the airport, get past security, and I call him and I say, hey, I'm here. Past security. I got 30 minutes till the plane leaves off. Again, all he says is, I'm proud of you and I love you. He hangs up the phone. And I go to sit down. And I sit down at the chair, waiting for them to call me. And I sit down. And this overwhelming feeling of hope comes over my entire body. This warm blanket feeling. And something in my head says, everything is going to be okay. All my anxiety went away. All my sadness went away. All this weight lifted off my shoulders. It was like something was telling me, this is the time. This is when you're going to go get help. It was the best feeling I've ever felt in my entire life. It was as if this point in my life, at 44, was the time that my life was going to be saved. I get to rehab. I'm not nervous. I'm not anxious. I jump in with both feet. I don't miss a single meeting in 32 days that I was there. I actually went to extra meeting for military members that have served in combat. I did everything that they asked me to do and more. I went addict mode into sobriety.
Yeah.
100%. Because at that point, I realized this is life or death for me. If I don't take this seriously, it's going to cost me my life and everything that I love around me. Since that day, every single day that I wake up, I thank my higher power for another day of sobriety. I thank him for a chance to be a better human being and a chance to be a better father, son, husband, and friend. I never believed in a higher power. Even after I had that little experience on March 16th, I never truly believed into a higher power. I thought there was something out there, but I never truly believed. It wasn't until when I got to rehab and that weight was lifted off of my shoulders. And I had so many things happen to me in rehab that I know now were not coincidences. They were lined up for me to experience at that time of my life, because for me, my journey of alcoholism and addiction was 27 years. That's what I had to go through for me to be truly grateful for what has been given to me. Some people, unfortunately, never get that. Some people might only take a year or two, 5 years, 10 years. But for me personally, my higher power thought that I needed 27 years to go through what I had to go through for me in order to be grateful for everything that he has given me. I am truly blessed to be alive. I am truly grateful to still have my wife by my side, to have my home, to have my children love me. You know, when I first went to rehab, my oldest daughter, I have 3 daughters, 23, 14, and 10. My oldest saw everything. My oldest saw the worst father, the funny father, the silly father, the agitated father. Luckily, thank God, I was never a physically abusive father, but I sure as shit was verbally abusive. I said the nastiest shit to the people I love the most when I got drunk. And it affected my oldest daughter the most. When I came home from rehab, I expected everything to be sunshines and rainbows. Look at me. I went to rehab for 32 days. I'm doing it. And then it finally dawned on me that you drank and drugged for 27 years. How the hell would you expect 32 days to wipe away 27 years of mental turmoil, abuse, And it took my daughter 9 months to speak to me. I didn't push the relationship. I didn't push any conversations on her. And she lives here in my home. I didn't try to force anything upon her. I wanted my actions to speak louder than my words. I wanted her to see that I was going to meetings 7 days a week, that I was reading the 12 steps, the traditions. I was actively doing what I had to do in recovery, that I wasn't just sober, but I was living the steps of recovery. I was becoming a better person. I was becoming the person that she had never seen before, ever in her entire life. And one day I'm sitting at home and I get a text message, and it's from my daughter. We haven't spoken in 9 months. And she says, "Dad, I just want you to know how proud I am of you. I want you to know that I love you. And thank you for not pressing our relationship, because I needed time to heal just like you needed time to heal. And I just want you to know I'm extremely proud of you and I love you, Dad." That right there, no amount of money, you can't put any money on that. That was one of the biggest gifts of recovery that I have received so far. Just knowing that my child was proud of me, just knowing that the work that I had put in, she had acknowledged, and she saw that I wasn't just not drinking, but I was doing everything that I could to be a better person. I can't, that feeling, it wasn't pride, it wasn't acknowledgement, it was something almost on the lines of that hope feeling that I got in that airport. It was an amazing feeling. One of those feelings, again, that I'll never forget in my life.
Forgiveness is powerful.
Yeah. My wife should have left me 10 times over. And I asked her one day, I said, "Why didn't you leave me?" I said, "Everything that I put you through." And she simply just looked at me and she says, "Because I love you." She goes, "And I believed in you." She goes, "And I knew you could become the person that I once married." I'm grateful to still have my marriage, a job, a vehicle, my children in my life, my friends, my parents in my life. A lot of people lose everything. They lose every single thing. I'm fortunate enough that I didn't lose the most important things in my life. I don't know how or why it wasn't taken from me. But I now know that it's a very special thing that I have.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that. So I'm taking my sobriety and my recovery extremely serious. I don't mess around with it. And it's not just recovery, it's mind, body, and spirit. It's a balance of everything. When I first came home, I did 7 meetings a day, sometimes twice on Sunday. I did 98 meetings in 90 days. And it's funny because in recovery, when they said do 90 and 90, when I first heard that, I'm like, how the hell am I doing 90 and 90? The guy looks at me, he goes, "Did you drink every day?" And I said, "Hell yeah." He said, "How many hours a day?" I'm like, "Oh shit, well, I got off at 4. I drank till 9 o'clock. He's like, "So 5 hours a day you drank. You're telling me you don't have 1 hour a day for your sobriety?" And I was like, "Oh shit, you got me." I was like, okay. So I did 98 and 90. And I didn't want to burn out on the meetings. So I stepped it back to 4 days a week. And I started going to the gym for my physical activity. I started going to my psychiatrist. I started taking my bipolar medicine. And it actually freaking worked. Because I had no alcohol and drugs in my system. Imagine that if you actually take the medicine when they tell you to take it, milligrams that they tell you to take, for your bipolar and you don't have drugs and alcohol in your system, that it actually works. And I'm on the lowest dosage that they give you. I still, life still happens on life's terms. You're still going to have ups and downs, but I don't have those extreme peaks and I don't have those low valleys like I used to have in my drinking and drugging days. I know how to manage things now. I know how to assess the situation, deal with the problem at hand, and come up with a solution, rather than letting 4 or 5 things pile up to the point where it's overwhelming and I don't know how to take care of it. And my only solution before was to go get drunk or get high. Now I actually, it's like that analogy when a small snowball starts at the top of the hill, and by the time it gets down to the bottom of the hill, it's big enough to take out a house.
Yeah.
Well, now I pick up that snowball and just crush it in my hand and take care of it right at the beginning. I don't allow things to accumulate and overwhelm me. And I've never been able to do that before in my life. I've always put things to the back burner. I always let things pile up. And then I didn't know how to deal with it. And my solution was just get messed up.
Right.
I know now that I have a purpose in life. I know that the 27 years of addiction and mental illness was put upon my shoulders to share my experience with those who are still suffering, to show them that they are not alone, to show them that recovery is possible and we can live the life our higher power has always wanted for us and always had waiting for us. Too many of us go alone, not knowing that there's help out there, thinking that it's something to be ashamed of, something that you don't want to discuss with people, something that you want to hide. If you talk about it and we talk about it and we share our experiences, the more people we can help, the more people that possibly we could save a life, the more people out there that can truly know what their life is for, what their purpose is. I'm just so damn grateful, man. I can't believe tomorrow I have 1 year sober. I have never, since the age of 17, gone a day without something, even if it's just smoking pot, without something. I had to have something. And for me to come up on 365 days of absolutely nothing, it's a miracle. It is truly a miracle. It's a blessing to me. And I'm not going to take this for granted. I'm coming for everything alcohol promised me and took from me. I'm coming for it all. I'm coming for everything.
That's a pretty powerful story, man. I want to jump back to kind of the beginning of it. Cause so I used for 27 years too.
Seems to be a magic number.
Yeah. So when I got clean this time, not only did I use the 12 steps, but I also really started looking at how I had the good fortune of getting clean and sober in a county jail with a good group of guys, a bunch of old hard convicts who were just tired. And I was in a therapeutic community, which is like a rehab in jail. And we're in these classrooms about the size of a bedroom, anywhere from 7 to a dozen of us, crying, talking about how our moms didn't love us, or our parents beat us, or our dad left us, and how we felt like it was our fault our whole lives. And then we started doing work about changing our narratives and how we told our personal story, about not being the victim anymore, but looking at it objectively and trying to figure out not necessarily what my part was, because I didn't have a part. I didn't have a part in getting beat. I didn't have a part in getting kicked out at 12 years old. I didn't have a part of being molested. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't have a part in your parents getting divorced. You know what I'm saying? Like, she didn't have a part in her dad neglecting her because he didn't want to bring drugs and alcohol around her. He wanted to save her from that. You know what I mean? Like, so I had to figure out and heal that trauma. I learned that trauma is not an illness. It's not something that needs to be treated. it's an injury that can be healed. It's a snapshot, an emotional snapshot that our brain takes in that moment at the highest peak of the trauma. And it becomes the defining point of our lives. For 27 years.
We lay it over everything.
Everything. For 27 years, I shot dope at my stepmom. I shot dope at my dad not being my savior, not protecting me, not loving me enough. And it finally dawned on me. I was like, man, I wonder how much sleep she's lost. I wonder how much sleep he's lost. So what I did was I had to find forgiveness. And that was a tough one because I thought forgiving somebody meant saying, oh, you're good. You know what I mean? What you did is fine, blah, blah, blah. That's not what it is. When you forgive somebody, you're saying, you know what? What you did was wrong, but I refuse to let you hold power over me anymore. I'm taking the power back. So like my question finally to it is, have you figured out what was at the core of your drinking? Like what it was about yourself from whatever back when that you didn't like about yourself, that you had to excel at sports and you had to overachieve to try to get your dad's approval. You know what I mean? Like, have you figured out what that is? And if so, have you done any, or are you doing any work around that?
Exactly what you just said is what I'm about to say.
That's what's up.
It wasn't until this past year of sobriety that I finally forgave my father. It wasn't until this past year. And now that I've been able to look back on everything, it was, and my mom hates me to say this because I said it to her and she kind of shuns it, but I'm like, I allowed my father in a situation that he left me as a child. The fact that I didn't know my real grandfather, the fact that I really don't know my father's side of the family. It made me lost as a man, made me lost as a boy. I was always trying to find that, what's my family tree? Was my grandfather like that to my father? And I found out all these things that, my father didn't know his real father. He grew up with a stepfather. I always thought that was my real grandfather. I didn't know that. I finally found that out. So things started to click. And my mom told me, you had nothing to do with me and your father get divorced. Your father liked women. And that's what your father wanted to do. She's like, and I couldn't take it anymore. So for years, in my 20s, I lived 30 houses from my father for 4 years. We lived on the same row, same houses. I saw him 3 times in 4 years. He was never part of my life. I couldn't tell you the last time I got a Christmas card from him. I have a 3-year-old grandson from my oldest daughter. He's met him twice and he's 3 years old. I finally this past year realized that my father is egotistical. He's self-centered. He's all about himself, always has been all about himself and what he wants, and has nothing to do with me. And frankly, he's kind of an asshole. And I'm okay with that because it doesn't affect me anymore. My dad's 72 now. He's been that way his whole life. He's going to die that way. And I'm not going to allow him or the way that he acts control me or my family anymore. If he doesn't want anything to do with his grandchildren, if he doesn't want to do anything with his great grandchild, if he doesn't want to have a relationship, that's fine. But it's funny because now that I'm sober, my grandmother just passed away about a month and a half ago. She was 94, and the last 7 months of her life she had dementia. So it's better that she passed away because she didn't know any of us anymore at that point. That's not a way to live.
That's a hell of a run.
Yeah, 94, right?
Yeah.
So my mom actually went to my grandmother's house because he moved into her house to help clean up and go through some things. And this was only about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. And she went there and he said, so how's Timmy doing? She said, Pete, he's doing great. He's coming up on a year. He goes to meetings. He shares on podcasts the story. He goes to the gym every day. He works on his spiritual and mental, physical abilities. And, it's really became a great person. And he looks at her and he says, well, is he ever going to speak to me again? I hadn't spoke to my father in 3 years. And she said, I don't know, Pete. And she said, it's kind of funny that you asked, because that's one of the steps, making amends. She said, so he's working his steps. She said, maybe that will be one of his steps to make amends with you. She said he didn't say nothing else after that. I got up the courage I didn't call my father, but I texted him. And I said, hey, Dad, I just want to say how sorry I am for the loss of your mother. I love you. And I hope that one day maybe we can see each other again. And his response was, I really appreciate you calling for the condolences. Yeah, well, that, as you know, that wasn't a way for her to live. So she's in a better place. Thank you. Not anything like, yeah, that'd be great to see you, son. I'm proud of you. Nothing like that. And for a second, I kind of felt like a small child again. I kind of was looking for that. I'm proud of you, son. And I didn't get it. But it was only for a second. Because then I realized, man, he's still the same person. And I have changed so much. And I'm not going to let it affect me anymore. Last week, he called my mom and said, hey, I really look forward to Timmy calling me. Is he ever going to do it? She said, Pete, I don't know. Why don't you call him? Nah. I'll just wait to hear from him. But the fact that it's in his head, the fact that he may just want to, I don't know, go to lunch or just see me sober, because my father's never really seen me sober at all my entire life. He left when I was 6. And by the time I came home from the Marines, I was an alcoholic. In high school, I was a drug addict and alcoholic, and all through my life and up until this past year. That's all he ever saw. That's all he ever knew of. We would see each other here and there every once in a while, but nothing really, no real relationship.
Yeah.
And 3 years when I finally said I was done, I wasn't even going to contact him anymore. Not to put my daughter's story out there, but it correlates. At the age of 16, my oldest daughter was raped at a party. And when the detectives were talking to her and the psychologists were talking to her, it came out that my oldest brother had molested her 3 times. She never told us. I never knew. Well, my father still to this day has a relationship with my older brother. And I can't grasp that reality, that he will talk to him and have a relationship with him, but not me. I can't grasp the fact that you're going to talk to a person who molested your granddaughter and still have time with him, but you don't pick up the phone to call me. And it bothered me for a while. But again, it goes back to, I now know that's just the person that he is.
Hey, it's his fucking loss, man.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm not going to let it bring me down. I am me now. And I am in love with myself now for the first time in my entire life. And something so minute, something that I have no control over, I'm not going to let it affect me. Change the things that we can, accept the things that we cannot change. I can't change the fact that that's who he is as a person. That's who he is as a human being. So I'm not going to try to change it. I'll accept it. I'll move on, and I won't let it affect me anymore in my life.
Aca Serenity Prayer.
Oh.
So I just want to pipe in with out that you're the second person who has said they dove into their sobriety as voraciously and crazily as they're using. So I agree. I think that's a huge difference. When you're ready for it, it'll happen. But everything that you're saying about what's happening with your father, I just wanted to read the Aca Serenity Prayer real quick, because not many people know the Aca version of the Serenity Prayer. And it's ACA is Adult Children of Alcoholics or Dysfunctional Families. And it's kind of where I've ended up landing. Most of my trauma and abuse is from the effects of alcoholism and dysfunctional goings on in my growing up. So while I flirted with addiction and have an addictive personality, it's more for the chemicals that'll come from intense relationships or addictions to fear and excitement, or there's ways that we learn to manipulate our own chemistry so that we can get high, not only using external substances.
So in ACA, they call it emotional sobriety.
Yeah, we're in ACA, we're seeking emotional sobriety. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But the ACA Serenity Prayer is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me.
Isn't that awesome?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And you're doing your work. You're parenting and loving yourself. You're giving yourself all those things that you have needed your entire life, so it's amazing that, it's such a miracle. And I'm so happy for you that you got to keep your family, and that they got to keep you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming back to those 3 girls and that woman who fought for you for so long. Like that's just amazing. I'm super happy for you.
I sometimes feel as if I don't deserve it, to be honest with you.
You don't.
I really
We don't.
I know.
I'm going to tell you what, when I was like 35, 40 days sober, my first time, I was reading Million Little Pieces by James Frey.
Okay.
I don't know that book. It turned out to be a bunch of bullshit. But I'm like relating to the story. And I'm sitting on this bus riding from Boulder, Colorado to Longmont. It's like a 20-30 minute bus ride. I'm reading. And I'm waiting for my sponsor's wife to come pick me up at the gas station. And I'm crying. I mean, like full on blowing snot bubbles. Crying. And I get in the car and she's like, what's wrong? And because I was just thinking about how wonderful everybody in AA was being to me, and how people wanted me around. You know what I mean? They didn't hide stuff when I came over to their house. And I'm crying. I'm like, I just feel like I don't deserve any of this. And she just called, she's a little tiny chick from Boston. She just looks at me and she's like, you don't. She's like, if you got me, it'd be in a fucking morgue or in a dumpster somewhere or in prison for the rest of it. She said, that's the grace of God, man. You know what I mean? Thank God that something stepped in and kept you from stepping off that bucket and just let you sit there and feel sorry for yourself, because that's probably what's, at least maybe not necessarily what saved you, but what saved her from that. Because that might have been too much to have to cut you down, see you flopping and cut you down. That might have been too much. You know what I mean?
So now I do see these small signs everywhere. I do see the small correlations everywhere because I'm awake. I acknowledge it. I can see it. The first day I went to a bunch of meetings when I came home to try to find the one that I really liked. And it was I live in Baltimore, Maryland. So I had about 20 different ones I could go to. I finally found this one. It was about 12 minutes away, and it's called Over the Rainbow. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. It's close to my house. I get there and I walk in, and 5 minutes after walking in, it rains. And then it stops. And a member walks in. She goes, everybody come outside and look at the rainbow over the building.
Yeah.
I walk outside and there's this huge rainbow over the building. And I just look up. I was like, so this is where I got to be, huh? This is my place.
Yeah.
I couldn't deny it. It was such a sign right there that there's no way, after going to 10 different meetings, that I walk in this one and 5 minutes later, a rainbow comes over the building. I was like, oh man, I found my home. So that's my home group. I haven't left since. Those small things that I probably wouldn't have acknowledged or even thought about it before, they happen on a weekly basis for me. Just small little tidbits that, hey, you're at the place in your life right now where you need to be. And I've
Yeah.
always had this planned for you, but you finally see what I've had waiting for you. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. Every single day, you know, last month, my job, I'm a subcontractor. I'm a carpenter. So I work for different companies. And when the job's over, and if they don't have another job, I'll go with another company.
Mhm.
Last month, they ran out of jobs. We did a 35 apartment building unit, and we're down to the last apartment. And he was like, this is right after Christmas. He's like, man, he said, we got no more work. We'll have no more work until April. He's like, so I'm going to have to, let everybody go until April. Hopefully you can find something to hold you over. So I call a guy that I worked with 8 months prior. I'm like, hey, you have work to hold me over till April, till they call me back? And he goes, yeah, man, I'm swamped. I can use you on Monday. I'm like, okay. So I get there and he's like, what are they paying you? So I told him. He's like, I can match that. He goes, matter of fact, I'll give you $10 more an hour.
Wow.
I was like, what? He said, yeah, I want you to start Monday. I hung up the phone and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, just how that worked. I didn't even have to wait a day to worry about how I was going to pay my bills. It was lined up and waiting for me. And the kicker is, this guy is in the rooms. He has 8 years sober.
That's what's up.
His office manager is his sponsor, who has 35 years sober.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm now working with sober people. I'm now working with like-minded individuals that we all have the same purpose. We all go to meetings. We all work the steps. We all work the traditions. We talk about it at work. He's actually coming to my meeting tomorrow morning to help me celebrate my 1 year. It's
That's
just
awesome.
amazing how that it wasn't a coincidence that I called him and he said, work for me on Monday. Oh, and by the way, I have 8 years sober. I go to meetings on a weekly basis. I work the 12 steps. I have a sponsor. I have a sponsee. I was like, wow, like that was just so amazing to me. I couldn't have made that up.
Yeah. Well, man, getting kind of close to the end. Why don't you tell the folks out there how they can find you, where you're at?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram pretty big, at T Lodgen. Again, another, not a coincidence, I never was on Instagram until I got sober, and I opened it up and it was all my friends, like from high school and just people I grew up with. And it was like, I had about, 382 followers or something like that. And I was like, this thing isn't really for me. And then I started sharing my story. I started messaging all these podcasts to be on because I finally felt ready to share out loud, like Sober Slogan said. I share out loud because I used out loud. So I finally felt comfortable in my own skin to start sharing. And now I have almost 72,000 followers.
That's awesome.
When you first hit me up, you had 67.
Yeah. Now,
in a week, you've gotten like 5,000 followers.
Almost, dude. And I wake up in the morning and there's like 100, and then like 5 or 6 hours later, there's 50, and there's people messaging me, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it just reiterates that maybe this is my passage. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is why he saved me, to share my story with those still suffering. And I have a passion for it. I couldn't tell you the last thing I had a passion for in my life. I'm not doing this for any other reason other than to help somebody else. Real quick, before we get off, the first podcast that I did, very first one, 4 days later, I'm sitting at a guy's house getting ready to pick up a table to go take it to a recovery house. They asked me to pick it up and drop it off for them. And I'm sitting there and the phone rings. And I pick it up. I'm like, hello. And he said, hey, is this Tim? I said, yeah, who's this? He said, this is Tony. The only other Tony I've ever met in my life was in the Marine Corps with, 1996. I was like, Tony from the Marines? And he said, yeah, man. I'm like, well, what's going on, man? You don't sound good. He's like, I'm not I've been addicted to pain pills for 18 years.
Mm.
He's like, I had to contact you. He said, because 4 days ago, I heard your podcast. He goes, I want to tell you, I don't want to do this anymore. I've hurt everybody, my family, my friends, my jobs. He's like, I just wanted you to know I'm 4 days sober after listening to your podcast. He goes, you instilled hope in me. He lives in Ohio. I live in Baltimore. If I never would have shared that, that never would have reached him. I talk to him once a week. He's coming up on 73 days sober now for the first time in his life. That is truly amazing to me, that my message, that what I said helped somebody so far away, that somebody that I have a relationship with, that I served with. I know this is why I'm here. I know it now. And I'm going to do this as much as I can. I'm going to share as much as I can. And I hope that this changes somebody's life that listens to this. I always said, I just hope I reach one person.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm reaching so many more people, it just justifies why I'm here. And this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, is just share my story in hopes of helping those still suffering.
My first sponsee that I ever sponsored when I had like 90 days, he just celebrated like 13 or 14 years. He stayed sober and I didn't. Not that that's my fault, but like I was there in the beginning. So it's like, I'm proud, like a dad. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Hell yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah.
All right, brother. It was so good having you on there, on here tonight. And I'll put all your links and everything in the show notes. I would love to talk to you again, man, in the future. Love to have you back.
Absolutely, man. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Love to know what you're doing. Love to know, keep hearing about the great things that are going on, man. You're doing good work, bro. You're doing God's work. And we appreciate you for it.
I'm finally, I'm chasing my dream, man. In June, I'm competing for my first bodybuilding show.
That's amazing.
Something that I've always wanted to do.
That's amazing.
We told each other to bring that up, to mention it. We forgot. So I'm glad you did.
I just, I saw my mom do it. My uncle in the 70s was Mr. Universe. My cousin was Mr. Maryland. Like I've grown up around it, and alcohol and drugs have always gotten in the way. And even if I don't win, even if I don't place, getting up on that stage, I won.
Yeah.
I won.
Just doing it, man. Even if you come in last, you've already won.
Already won, man. So it's just amazing where my life has gone within a year, and I can't wait to see what else he has in store for me. Yeah,
it's almost overwhelming, isn't it?
I teared up like 3 times today, man.
Yeah.
I can't believe tomorrow's 1 year, and I know I'm gonna lose it tomorrow. I'm gonna cry a couple times talking.
Yeah, happy rebirthday tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm probably not gonna be able to sleep tonight. It's gonna be crazy.
Well, all right, brother.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for coming on the show. It was great having you.
Just keep going and get this growing and keep helping each other.
And that's it. This is the more people that follow us, the more people that we reach. In closing, Tim, I just want to thank you for your service to our country.
That too.
Yep, absolutely. It's great having you on. We'll talk again in the future. You have a wonderful night, brother.
Dude, thank you so much for having me, you guys. You guys have a great night. Take care.
You too.
Go kiss all those beautiful ladies.
Well, thank you so much. You guys take care. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Thanks for listening to the show today. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to reach out to us at our website, nolovepodcast.com, or follow any of the links in the show notes. You're not alone. You don't have to face anything alone. There is help,